Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Mr. Leclerc. This time we're on page 42, looking at letter D. Secant t equals -2 square root of 3 over 3. In my opinion, this is the most challenging problem on page 42. So let's try to make this as painless as possible. Okay, so before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the problem on a separate sheet of paper because I know I'm going to run out of space if I don't. So E secant t equals -2 square root of 3 over 3. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is remember what secant equals. So let's go to page 34 on our unit circle and look at the definition of secant. So secant is 1 over the x-coordinate, which is the same as 1 over cosine, since the x-coordinate corresponds to cosine. So let's go ahead and write that down. So secant equals 1 over x, which is the same as 1 over cosine. Now in this case, secant is -2 square root of 3 over 3. So we can set this equal to -2 square root of 3 over 3. Okay, so now we just need to figure out what x value, so that when you divide by 1, you get -2 square root of 3 over 3. Or what value for cosine does that happen in? So in other words, when 1 divides cosine, what value does cosine have to be -2 square root of 3 over 3? So let's solve for x, just like we did in the last problem. So we can set 1 over x, or 1 over cosine, equal to -2 square root of 3 over 3. We can cross multiply, so 3 times 1, we get 3 equals x times -2 square root of 3. We get -2 square root of 3 times x. To get x by itself, we can divide both sides by -2 square root of 3. That cancels that. So we get x equals 3 over -2 square root of 3. Okay. So almost looks like we're done, but remember we can't have a radical in the denominator or the bottom, so we need to rationalize the denominator by multiplying the numerator, the top, and the denominator, the bottom, by square root of 3 over square root of 3. Okay, that gives us on the numerator, the top, 3 square root of 3 divided by -2. And remember, when we do when we multiply the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, we can just multiply the insides. That gives us the square root of 9. The square root of 9 just comes out as 3. So on the denominator, we have -2 times 3. So we have 3 square root of 3 divided by -6. Okay, and remember, we can simplify 3 over 6 by dividing both by 3. So we get 1 square root of 3 on the top over -2. Okay, and remember, we can choose where we put the negative sign. It can either be on the top or the bottom. I'll just move it to the top because it looks easier to read. So we'll make it -, square root of 3 over 2. Okay, so that tells us x equals -, square root of 3 over 2, or cosine equals -, square root of 3 over 2. Okay, so in other words, when cosine equals -, square root of 3 over 2, secant equals -2 square root of 3 over 3, because when we put -, square root of 3 over 2 in for x or cosine, we get 1 divided by -, square root of 3 over 2, which gives us -2 square root of 3 over 3. So now all we need to figure out is, what angle does cosine equal -3 over 2? -, square root of 3 over 2, sorry. Okay, so notice it's negative, so that tells us that we're looking in quadrants 3 and quadrant 2, because our x-coordinate, or cosine, is negative in quadrant 2 and quadrant 3. So our values for our angle will have to come on the left side of the unit circle. Okay, so we're looking for -, square root of 3 over 2 for cosine. And it looks like it's right here, 150 degrees. We have cosine is negative square root of 3 over 2. That tells us that t can be 150 degrees, or 5 pi over 6 radians. So t equals 150 degrees, or 5 pi over 6 radians. Same thing. Okay, now go ahead and pause the video and look for one more point on the unit circle where cosine is negative square root of 3 over 2. Okay, let's come back. So you should have found negative square root of 3 over 2 right here at 210 degrees, or 7 pi over 6 radians. So t can also be 210 degrees, or 7 pi over 6 radians. Cool. Let's just recall what that means. So that tells us at 150 degrees, or 5 pi over 6 radians, and 210 degrees, or 7 pi over 6 radians, cosine equals negative square root of 3 over 2, and when that happens, secant equals negative 2 square root of 3 over 3. Okay, now we need to find the reference triangles. Go ahead and pause the video and try to find the reference triangles for 150 degrees and 210 degrees on your own. Okay, let's come back. So remember, to find the reference triangles, we just connect the terminal side to the initial side. So we connect the terminal side for 150 to the initial side, or the x-axis. And there's our first reference triangle for 150 degrees. Let's draw that on page 42. There we go. And then our second reference triangle for 210 degrees, we connect the terminal side for 210 to the initial side, or the x-axis. And there's our second reference triangle for 210 degrees. Let's go ahead and sketch that on page 42. And there we go. And I'll go ahead and write the answers on page 42 as well, since I haven't yet. Remember, t is 150 degrees, or 5 pi over 6 radians, or t is 210 degrees, or 7 pi over 6 radians. Perfect. So we found both our reference triangles, and we found that at 150 degrees, or 5 pi over 6 radians, and 210 degrees, or 7 pi over 6 radians, secant equals negative 2 square root of 3 over 3. In the next video, I'll go over problem F. Until then, see ya.